Starting off in our number 10 spot, we have the fire. This is a photo that comes to us from 2003 at the Station nightclub in Rhode Island, and it shows the band Great White as they perform. While this seems like just a regular photo that someone took on their Motorola Razr, what ensued shortly after this photo was taken is absolutely tragic. Basically, as the band performed, there were some pyrotechnics that were set off, and while this was meant to be a spectacular display, it only ended up in disaster. The fireworks ended up setting all of the flammable acoustic foam in the walls and ceiling on fire, and within 1 minute, everything that was combustible was up in flames. Within 2 minutes, the entire club was fully engulfed in black smoke, and people were having trouble finding exits. In the end, this fire took the lives of 100 people, and another 230 were injured as a result. It has gone down in US history as one of the worst and most deadly nightclub fires. In our number 9 spot today, we have the core. This photo shows a physicist named Harold New, and while this looks like a relatively normal, non-threatening photo, what he has in his hand is truly devastating. Harold is holding the nuclear core of what was nicknamed the Fat Man atomic bomb. This means that Harold is holding the nuclear core of the atomic bomb that was later dropped on Nagasaki in 1945. The immediate blast of course took many lives, but so did the long-term effects of the bomb, like radiation illnesses and that sort of thing. It's crazy to look at a photo like this because it seems so perfectly normal when he literally has a life-changing, world-ending device in the palm of his hand. Also, I don't think I could ever hold something like that. Not only would I just not want to, but I don't think I could even get near it for fear of something going wrong. In our number 8 spot today, we have the eruption. This is a photo that is showing Mount Pinatubo, which is located in the Philippines on June 15th, 1991. That is the day that this volcano erupted into what would be the second largest volcanic eruption of the 20th century. Certainly impressive, also extremely terrifying. This photo shows the pyroclastic flow full of hot gas and rock being flung into the air. Eruptive activity in the volcano first started on April 2nd of that year, which prompted researchers to set up seismographs in the area. By June, the volcano was having a group of progressively shallower eruptions before, on June 12th, the volcano had its first spectacular eruption, which sent an ash column 19 kilometers up into the atmosphere. Additional smaller explosions continued on June 13th, which then led to some intense seismic activity. After more highly gas-charged magma reached the surface, on June 15th, the volcano once again exploded, this time sending the cloud of ash 40 kilometers up into the atmosphere. Volcanic ash and pumice blanketed the surrounding areas, and pyroclastic flows filled what were once deep valleys with fresh volcanic deposits. It is truly magnificent and extremely powerful, and this photo shows just that.
Number 7. Backseat driver. This photo is from 1959. Okay, it was taken by a lady named Mabel Chinnery, and the photo at first glance is just a classic 60s shot of a man in a car. That man was Mabel's husband. Now the man in the back seat, however, that back left seat, we have no idea who that was. Her husband apparently was the only guy in the car at the time. And also, that's a pretty tough angle. If you wanted to recreate this photo with your friends after work, like try this. This is a really hard shot, even with phones now. It would be hard back in the day. It's like he's appearing to us through the seat almost with that angle. So either this is a lie, which happens often, people can lie, and a man was sitting in the back left seat, or like Mabel thinks, maybe this is her dead mother-in-law. Now, if she had said father-in-law, I think maybe it was his spirit, but this for sure looks like an older gentleman with a collar or something. Kind of looks like, dare I say it, the devil. I don't know, I read a lot of comic books. Number 6. Coventry Society Demon. You may be thinking, some of these may not be demons, Taylor, maybe they're just nice spirits who stuck around after they passed. Yeah, while it's nice to believe that, photos like this convince me otherwise. This is from the Coventry Freeman Society, and it shows everybody at this event dressed to the nines. But when you look at the top left corner over here, you see a hooded figure. Somebody that clearly doesn't belong with the vibe in this room at this event. Nobody else was seen also at any point at that night wearing a hood like this, so of course many believe it was a dark part of the afterlife photobombing this event. Honestly, I totally believe that. This is a weird one. The hood, maybe I've been watching Harry Potter lately, I don't know. Maybe it's a Dementor, we actually don't know. Number 5. The ghost pilot. Oh, this one gives me the creeps. I'm hoping it's just a friendly ghost. I included it because it's kind of nice, but you never really know, honestly. This one, I did some research, it's creepy. Any sort of spirit, I don't welcome. Yeah, I don't gamble on the afterlife. I'm actually all set. The ghost pilot is a photograph that shows a spirit from 1987. A woman named Mrs. Sayer was visiting an airfield in England, so of course, she did the classic tourist thing and got a photo in the cockpit. We all do it at some point, but do you ever think of who may have died in that exact spot before? After the age of 10 years old, I was like, you know what, I understand ghosts, I'm not gonna sit in that tank. I'm good, thanks. People swear the Titanic was a cursed ship and that spirits were responsible for the ship's bad luck. Now, next time you want to sit in the pilot's seat, look around for spirits, because this image was developed and it appears that somebody or something was in the helicopter with Miss Sayer the whole time. Number 4, the Paris Demon. Originally, the tunnels under Paris were built for stone mines, but near the end of the 18th century, it turned into something haunting. Cemeteries were starting to fill up, and I mean that in a literal sense, and humans didn't figure out how to be clean, so bodies would just be laying on the sides of the roads. They started to pile up over time, so the solution was to use these catacombs. They were no longer needed for those mines anymore, so might as well use them as a mass graveyard. And now we have the scariest basement in the world. We have walls of skulls that on one hand, it's cool as hell, it's natural history, it's gothic yet beautiful, but when Google Maps tried to give a user an up-close look, it seemed to have caught a shadowy demon figure. With more than 6 million souls laying down there, it doesn't shock me to hear about something like this at all. There's a video of the street view, and in it you can see this figure. Check it out yourself. Number 3, demons are us. For this next one, we'll be going down the Lego aisle. Yeah, how fun. A haunted Toys R Us. Can you imagine all those toys starting up at night by themselves? Bay Area's haunted Toys R Us is no longer a thing. Thankfully, as of 2018, that location closed down, but its tales, they live on forever. The Sunnyvale Toys R Us demonic presence appeared in the background of this photo. But of course, like others on this list, the people present at the time of the photo swear that nobody else was there. It's like everyone has bad memory, everyone has good memory, I can't really tell right now. It's like, could this be a spirit or a demon caught on tape that just happens to be at a Toys R Us? I vote yes. Employees talked about creepy things happening there at night all the time, and the Sunnyvale store is indeed haunted by more than one ghost. That's what people say. The store stood where the Murphy farm once stood, so many think the spirit is the ghost of Johnny Johnson. I don't know, the fact that Ouija boards are a toy that is commonly used to, I don't know, communicate with spirits, maybe closing these doors was the best call. I don't think we welcomed in any good spirits. I don't think any spirits are clocking in for work, you know what I mean? Now it's closed, so I'm like, it didn't work. Whatever we tried didn't work. Number 2, ghost boots. These boots are made for haunting, and that's just what they'll do. Yeah, I put a pair of boots on this list. That's where we're at now. This photo of a young girl may look like a classic family trip, but upon closer inspection, it seems like somebody or something is standing behind her. Now, of course, her father said that nobody was behind her at the time that it was taken, and I agree that, and like honestly, and I believe him. Honestly, that would be pretty weird if he was like, hey, can you stand right here? Yeah, you behind my daughter, don't move, but you stand right here in this open field, thanks. Ka-ching. I don't believe it, I don't buy it, it's weird. This shot was taken at Zushi Zenagawa, Japan, and you can see boots and what looks like clothing sticking out from behind the child's elbow. The kid's father said, I took a few photos, and when I was looking through them at night, I noticed the boots behind her. I took several photos in the same spot, but only one of them had boots. You always see that in movies, right? At night they're going through and they see like it's 2 a.m. It's never at a Walmart while it's being developed. They don't find these photos in a bright, busy area. It's always in a dark kitchen. Ugh, it's creepy. So he freaked out and then put it on Reddit, and then now we're here. Full circle. And finally coming in at number 1, cave drawings. I know these aren't photos, but come on, there's nothing more eerie than humanity's origin, right? Let's do it, let's go back, let's turn the clocks back. And for archaeologists from around the world, this cave system in France doubles as the world's oldest art gallery. These Paleolithic paintings are haunting to look at. They were created from humans about 20,000 years ago, and it's now considered a heritage site. There's many of these caves around the world. So if you're thinking about sneaking down there in the Lascaux caves and taking a look yourself, well, you better think again. The cave was opened originally in 1948, but due to carbon dioxide levels from visitors, it was closed in 1963. Learning about our history is challenging, and when it's slowly fading away, that surely doesn't help. Just gotta hold your breath while you read. This is crazy. I'm currently reading a book called Supernatural by Graham Hancock, and in it he tries to dig through history to find the origins of spirituality, and markings in caves like these ones from ages ago definitely help. They resemble these demon-looking creatures almost, and this is long before religion. These drawings were supposedly from hallucinations, but many believe it's one of the first accounts of a demon interacting with a human. It's just drawn on a cave wall. Pec Merle is a cave in France that also has these strange drawings, and some say they resemble aliens, others of course voting demons. Picking up the list at number 10, motorized roller skates. Okay, this first one they've been working on for a very, very long time. Motorized roller skates. What a dream this would be. This photo was taken at the Sunoco station in Hartford, Connecticut. Context aside, this is an odd one and it's pretty dangerous. A dude with a briefcase is filling up at a gas station and he's wearing roller skates. That man is Mike Dreschler. The year was 1956 and the Motorized Roller Skate Company of Detroit really thought they were onto something here. The roller skates only cost around $250 $250, which today is around $2,400. And its max speed was 17 miles an hour, so it's not really a great deal at all. Now obviously this isn't a good idea. The image alone of the man pouring gasoline into Mike's backpack, no, we don't do that. The biggest problem here, aside from the, everything about it, was that they couldn't figure out brakes. Honestly, I'll take Heelys any day over these. Much more safe. Number 9. First photo of a black hole. Okay, at first glance, you may think this is a blurry photo of a distant star, and compared to some shots we have today of nebulas, this black hole doesn't seem impressive at first. But back in 2019, around 200 scientists from 20 different countries all put their big brains together in order to get a photo of a black hole at the center of the Messier 87 galaxy, 55 million light years away. But just how do you do this? How do they get a photo of something that sucks in light and all of matter? Well, the Event Horizon telescope shows us the dark center here, this hole that swallows all matter. It looks like a ring that you can maybe look around, but the light that we see in this photo, these radio waves that are represented, that's coming from all around the black hole, behind it, in front of it, to the side. It's actually impossible to see, but after the team made a virtual telescope the size of Earth, yeah, you heard me, they were able to see the radiation surrounding the black hole, therefore get this image. Black holes are something we barely understand in the science world alone, and the fact that we can see a blurry photo is more than we deserve, really. Number 8, the sun. While it's not recommended that we stare at it, the sun is pretty beautiful. As of today, we have one of the most crystal clear photos of the big red fireball. Photographer Andrew McCarthy layered together 150,000 different photos of the sun to create this 300 megapixel image for us to awe at. Now we can look at this and our eyes don't melt out of our heads. Now of course there's many steps that come into the picture, pun intended, in order to not go blind or light any fires. Andrew required a special telescope with numerous filters to do so. So if you're thinking of pointing your phone at a telescope and then pointing that at the sun, just don't do it. It's not gonna work. Number 7, time travelers. Ah yes, we love these on Most Amazing. It's a common theme in movies, Back to the Future, Looper, Avengers. Time travel plots are fun, but of course they're mainly nonsense. So when we see a case like the Cape Scott story, we can't help but be intrigued. Time travel or not, this is an interesting photo. It comes from Ray Peterson's book, The Great Cape Scott Story. That book was from 1974, but the actual photo in there was taken over 100 years ago. And in the photo we see this modern looking guy rocking shorts, messy surfer morning hair. He doesn't look like he's from this time period at all. And this has happened more than once, like the time traveling hipster. That was also a fun time. That was a photograph from the 40s, again, seems to feature a modern man. Now that one was debunked since, but this first guy with the shorts and the hair, like I'm pretty sure that's my cousin. This guy looks familiar. What the hell? That's not an early 1900s man at all. No chance. Time travel confirmed. Let us know in the comments. Number 6, worldwide selfie. The selfie Ellen took at the Oscars, I'll admit, that's up there. That's pretty good. Of course, right next to astronaut Michael Collins' photo of everybody in the world. Yeah, your parents were in this photo. How fun is that? They didn't even know it. In this photo, we have everybody alive at the time photobombing the main center of attention. We have Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong returning after their successful Apollo 11 mission back in 1969. When thinking of the astronauts who first went to the moon, we often forget about Michael Collins, but this photo he took is still so underrated. I can't even get 4 of my friends together for a single photo, and Michael got everybody in the world in one shot. Kicking off the list at number 10, William Thomas Stead. Born in 1849, William Thomas Stead was the son of Congregationalist minister, and at the age of 22, he was appointed as editor of the Northern Echo, a regional newspaper in Darlington. This British medium, Richard Borsonov, featured a photo of W.T. Stead and a spirit. Or a demon. One of the two, both pretty terrifying. While William was investigating a spiritual case, he took this photo with what's supposed to be the spirit of Pete Botha. Now, the reason many believe that maybe the spirit is evil is that Stead later on died in the Titanic. He boarded the ship to take part in a peace congress at Carnegie Hall, and survivors mentioned William Thomas Stead a few times. Apparently at dinner, he was chatting his way throughout the entire 11-course meal, recounting exciting, spooky times in his life, even mentioning a cursed mummy that he encountered at the British Museum once. That's a little odd for table talk. He even gave his life jacket to another passenger that night too. Stead would often claim that he would one day pass due to hanging or to drowning. And right before he was to be awarded with the Nobel Peace Prize, he passed away due to the latter. Was he cursed? I believe so, to be honest with you. What do you guys think? Number 9, the demonic boy photograph. It doesn't matter where or when, but odds are you've probably seen this photo at some point. All those late nights when you're scrolling through Reddit, you've probably seen this at some point. I know I have, and every time I see it, I'm kind of like, it looks pretty real. It's pretty haunting. You know when you see a photo, sometimes you get bad vibes, like it registers in your brain as something scary and real. Like you want to find something that looks fake about the photo, but it's tough. This photo was taken inside the Amityville house in 1976. It appears to be a young boy or ghost, spirit, demon, whatever, with glowing white eyes. It was taken with automatic cameras equipped with infrared, and it makes it even creepier that the boy looks like he's peeking around the corner. Like he knew something was coming almost, he didn't want to get caught. That's the creepiest part here. A photographer named Gene Campbell took it, and Gene was working with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren at the time. Yeah, the famous duo now rocking the big screen Conjuring universe. This was a real thing. They were on this case in real life. This photo was revealed 3 years after it was taken, and it was revealed on the Merv Griffin show. Imagine seeing this on a show, like Jimmy Kimmel whips this out. It's like, hey, we're gonna play Plinko. Check out this demon. Many believe this is the ghost of John DeFeo, one of the boys who lived there prior during the 1974 event. Now we're still trying to cover this one, but what do you guys think? Is this an elaborate hoax? Is this a young boy? Or is this one of the many demons that was said to haunt the house? Sound off down below. Number 8, the SS Watertown. This picture here perhaps is one of the creepiest on this list. I'm not sure what to think of this one. It comes from 1924 and it shows what appears to be two older men, or two older figures almost. I don't know, it's water, it's hard to tell. Some believe it's James Courtney and Michael Meehan in the water. Now the two had previously died and were buried at sea, hence that's why their first thought was them as to who it was. Other crew members saw these strange faces in the water as well, so when they turned back to get another look, 5 out of the 6 photos showed nothing. This was the only photo that showed what they saw. Are these the two lost crewmen, or is the vessel haunted by sinister forces?
In our number 7 spot today, we have Postwar. This is a photo that is said to have been taken in 1946, just after the end of the Second World War. Story goes that the person in this photo is a soldier who had just returned home from war, which would already be difficult and challenging enough, but as he returned home, he came to hear the news that unfortunately, despite his survival, his family had lost their lives during the war. There is no doubt about the impact that either world war had on the world, and how the impact doesn't stop once the war is over. These wars changed the course of history, and they changed people's lives forever. This is definitely a difficult photo to look at, and it's an eerie reminder of those dark times. In our number 6 spot today, we have The Disguise. Speaking of the Second World War, as it began to come to a close, many of the Germans who were involved in all of the many violations of human rights began to flee or try and hide or disguise themselves for fear of being persecuted. One of those was, of course, the worst of them all, Hitler himself. This photo, or rather series of photos, was created by the US government as an attempt to document the many ways that he could have disguised himself in order to escape being recognized and captured. At the time, the fear of him being able to escape responsibility and go on living his life abroad was very real. I mean, there have been others who actually did manage to do just that, and that is exactly the reason for these photos. There's also something kind of interesting and bizarre about what happens when we take away the features of his that we know him by. In the end, he didn't escape and go on to live abroad, but he did escape being held responsible before the world. In our number 5 spot today, we have the Titanic. We all know the story of the Titanic. I mean, it's one of the most famous in history, and this photo comes from just before the historic iceberg encounter. On April 10th, 1912, the Titanic set sail on its maiden voyage, heading from Southampton over to New York City. The ship took a couple of stops along the way, one in France, one in Ireland, before setting off for the United States officially, and somewhere along the beginning part of its journey, someone was able to snap a photo of the ship as it sailed. It's not clear exactly where this photo was taken, but it is thought to be the last photo taken of the ship before its tragic end. Considering it was only 4 days after the ship set sail that it hit the iceberg, it is likely that this photo came not too long before the terrible day. In our number 4 spot today, we have the Lipstick Killer. This is a photo that comes to us from December 10th, 1945. If looking at this image gives you a shudder down your spine, that absolutely makes sense, as it was written by a terrible person known as the Lipstick Killer. This photo is an image of a note he left written on the wall at one of his crime scenes. The photo comes from the apartment of Frances Brown, as just before he wrote this message, he took her life. After this message was left, he ended up taking the life of one other person because he was finally caught by the police 6 months later. The message scrawled in the photo reads, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more, I cannot control myself." It is an absolutely chilling note with a horrific backstory. In our number 3 spot today, we have Bad Politics. This is a photo that shows the former First Lady Rosalind Carter, and you may or may not be wondering who that man next to her is, and to that I say, my friends, that is the horrible monster that is John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown. This photo was taken at a Polish Constitution Day celebration in Chicago in 1978, which is the same year that Gacy was arrested for his crimes, so at the point this photo was taken, he had already taken the lives of at least 20 people. The reason he was there and was able to meet the First Lady is because he was not only the worst of the worst, he also somehow became the Democratic precinct captain in the Chicago suburbs in the 1970s, and he was the marshal of the Polish parade. The picture is even signed, quote, "To John Gacy, best wishes, Rosalind Carter." It's terrible. I hate it so much. I feel very bad for anyone who had to meet him. In our number 2 spot today, we have the first day. This is a photo that shows Dorothy Count Scoggins as she joined her new school. What should be a perfectly normal activity was certainly anything but for Dorothy, as she was the first black person to attend Harding High School in Charlotte, North Carolina, which was previously an all-white school. After the passing of the Purcell Plan in 1956, there were 40 students who applied for transfers, and Dorothy was one of 4 who was accepted. This photo clearly shows that although small steps were being taken within the law to prevent segregation, there were no steps being taken within the students. As Dorothy just tries to get an education, you can see her peers clearly trying to disturb her peace. After 4 days of this kind of treatment, Dorothy's parents ended up withdrawing her from the school over fears for her safety. These images, however, were seen around the world. This photo acts as quite the reminder for where we were really not all that long ago. In our number 1 spot today, we have the Challenger crew. This is a photo that was taken of the clearly very excited Challenger crew as they walked down the ramp ready to head off on their mission. The crew even included 37-year-old Krista McAuliffe, who was a high school social studies teacher. She had won a spot on this mission through a program with NASA called the Teacher in Space program, and she had trained diligently for months in order to be the first non-military person in space. On January 28, 1986, the Challenger mission proved to be fateful just 73 seconds after liftoff. 2 rubber O-rings failed because of the cold temperatures of the morning, and on live television the world watched as the spacecraft broke apart and plunged into the ocean, sadly taking the lives of everyone on board. It is an absolutely tragic event made even more chilling by this final photo.
Number 5. The first aerial photo. With technology today, we can map out our long commute easily. Google Street View it's honestly witchcraft. The fact that I can float around virtually or see the top of any building with a click of a button like on Google Earth, that's a privilege. Even if it's slow or glitchy, it's amazing. Also, drones, that bowling alley drone video, don't even get me started, that's crazy. The first aerial photograph, that was back in 1860. James Wallace Black took this one, not by using drones, but rather by using a hot air balloon. This lovely landscape is the town of Boston, and you're looking at it from around 2,000 feet. Another milestone in aerial photography, of course, is the first photo from space. This was much later in 1946. So next time you use a selfie stick in public, don't take it for granted, and also don't use a selfie stick in public. Number 4, the Isolator. This image might seem haunting at first, definitely, but it's actually pretty ahead of its time. The Isolator came long before noise cancelling mode or lo-fi beats to study and relax to. This goofy looking helmet was intended to block out noise and finally concentrate on finishing that paper due at midnight. This was back in the early to mid 1900s when inventor Hugo Gernsback worked hours and hours to create this study buddy to block out the distractions in life. This is a powerful image because the things that distract us today, like Instagram, Messenger, dating apps, phones, anything really, none of those were even a concept back in 1925 when this device was needed, when it was revealed to the public. Focusing is hard. If you're working in a loud office and you're thinking it's a you problem, it's not. This guy had like 3 pencils and a wooden desk, and even so he's like, oh come on man, focus. Block these pieces of wood out. Like he had nothing and he was still distracted. That's crazy. This device was useful, but of course it wasn't practical. Some light reading in the park. Yes, let me just pull out the Isolator. Number 3, portable holding cell. Prisoner transport is always a risky game. When out in public, in any way, the odds that something goes wrong or they escape back into the real world go up significantly. And we don't want that depending who or what is in the back of that truck. The movie Con Air is about this exact situation unfolding. A timeless classic, if you ask me. Nicolas Cage, so good. And Dave Chappelle, yeah, good one. Well, back in the 1920s, we didn't have SWAT teams move around the worst of the worst. We had bike cops with cages. This portable jail cell is an early version of our police car, except doesn't work. The concept was perfect, but the fact that this guy in the cell can just reach out and grab the officer driving the motorcycle at any time, that's not ideal. The fact that he's less than a foot away, that's not relaxing in the slightest bit. A motorcycle sidecar, those are fun, those are a great time. If I had one of those, I wouldn't be here right now, nor would Chris. We'd be whipping around the town. You know who I wouldn't take around town? This guy. He's up to something. He looks suspicious. You can see on his face. He wants to grab him off the bike. Number 2, ice mask. Today you can go to Amazon and get a therapeutic gel face mask for like $20. If you're stressed or if you're trying to avoid puffy eyes, throw this in the freezer for a hot minute and then you're set. You can make your own aloe vera honey gel mask if you feel like. Just click any vlogger that says the word wellness in their bio, and then you're set. Back in the 40s, Hollywood makeup artist Max Factor Jr. created the first face mask to reduce facial puffiness, and it looked way cooler. Again, pun intended. They didn't use freezer gels, instead just a bunch of ice cube shaped containers that froze individually and then they were stuck onto your face. It was an ice cube tray mask. Rather. It was actually invented to fight hangovers. That's one of the main reasons. How fun. It's a shame that this design never caught on because the ones today, they're no good. They don't work. They're not cold enough. Imagine busting this thing out during a lecture. Imagine having this underneath the Isolator. God, you could do anything you wanted. Number 1. First photo of Machu Picchu. It's currently a wonder of the modern world and it's kind of a big deal. Let's talk about it. Machu Picchu was built around 1450 AD. It was first discovered in 1911 by archaeologist Hiram Bingham when he and a small team were originally heading out to find the ancient city of Vilcabamba. But during their commute from Cuzco, they found this landmark instead. And I bet they're pretty jazzed about it. Yeah, sitting at 2,430 meters above sea level, Machu Picchu is a 14th century Inca citadel built from thousands and thousands of stones with many weighing over 50 tons. And with Machu Picchu translating to Old Mountain, well, this seemed like an impossible build back then, hence the fact that it's a modern wonder of our world. We barely had animal power back then too, all we had were llamas, so I mean, we really don't know how we did this. They designed a perfect city with their bare hands. They slapped these giant rocks into each other without any problems at all. I mean, after 500 years of foul weather, nothing has yet to destroy this ancient city. I wonder if when Hiram Bingham took this photo, they knew over 100 years later that we would still be blown away by it. We know nothing about this still. This photo.
Coming in at number 10, we have tiny hole disease. The bad people of Photoshop invented a horrible disease in order to trigger people with trypophobia, the fear of tiny holes. I actually really don't like a tiny hole, this much I know. So people with trypophobia will be afraid of little holes in symmetrical patterns. A lot of the time this is kind of the sickening symmetry that you can find in nature, like in honeycomb or certain plants. For example, meet the lotus pod. It actually makes my stomach turn. Remember the lotus pod for just one moment. Obviously when it comes to tiny holes in the skin, then that just hammers the fear home, right? The only way in real life you can get anything close to holy skin is by like kneeling on a bag of peas. Or is it? My friends, have a look at this. Lots of people have delighted in photoshopping grotesque holes onto people's skin, and that makes me feel absolutely not okay. The humble lotus pod has even been used to generate a horrifying looking skin condition that thankfully doesn't exist. Okay, can we stop looking at this now? Please. Coming into number 9, we have Voldemort. Could it be magic? No. No! Does anyone else here remember Take That? I feel like America never had the pleasure of the British boy band, but whatever, I stand by the reference and I just like to sing in the middle of lists. Honestly, it makes this whole dark Photoshop thing a lot easier to deal with. So remember when Dobby the house elf was spotted on security camera in the middle of the night? Well, I'm thinking that there's some kind of Hogwarts back from the dead resurgence going on, because this is something happening with Voldemort. I think that there's a poor soul with a Voldemort stuck on the back of his head. I guess that actually this is a black and white photo, so perhaps it predates the whole Professor Quirrell and Voldy era. For those of you who have forgotten, it looked a lot like this.
Bravery. Your parents had it too.
Like, what is going on with the evil on the head? Is this some kind of pre-Voldemort? Is this a wizard thing? I don't like it. This is one of the first examples of horror Photoshop. Coming into number 8, we have the 9/11 plane. This picture went viral on the internet and purportedly captured the moment just before one of the hijacked planes hit the World Trade Center. It shows a tourist unaware of his impending fate and the imminency of the moment that would change the world forever. Note the date on the picture. This image was actually unleashed to the world 2 weeks after the 9/11 attack and spread like wildfire over the internet at a time that people were still very much grieving. So did this picture capture the final moments of a man's life? Well, no. There are some digital imperfections that are visible to the trained eye, but beyond that, the man is wearing a coat, and I'm not sure if you've ever been to New York during the month of September, but it just isn't coat weather. Also, the observation deck doesn't open until 9:30 AM, so there wouldn't have been anyone up there yet. The plane also looks like it's approaching from the north, but the North Tower didn't have an outdoor observation deck, so it absolutely couldn't have been there. The plane isn't the right model either, so basically it was fake and nasty, and I have no idea who would do this and why. The image came from a Hungarian man called Peter, who claimed that it was indeed him as the tourist guy. He created the viral image. Honestly, for me, I think that's really sick. Why would someone want to do that? Things were getting a little heavy there for a second, so let's change up the tone a bit and talk about this absolute poop leader at number 7. I remember this image going viral. It seems to show a cheerleader who experiences a nasty case of diarrhea in the middle of a game. Unfortunate, especially when you're being hoiked into the air. Can you even imagine? A lot of people thought that this image was real. The look of the shock on the cheerleaders on the right hand side certainly make it seem like it could be, although, I mean, I've never seen poop that liquidy. It turns out, thankfully, this is fake, but the scary thing is that this poor girl was shamed. One commenter, Kintinka Min, wrote, "You can ruin someone's life with this sort of thing. I actually saw this image and believed it, and I felt deeply sorry for the girl. Imagine if this really happened and the whole world laughing about it, and now she has to run around explaining that actually this isn't real, right?" Okay, even grosser still at number 6, we have Blue Waffle. No, I'm not actually going to show you these Photoshop images because honestly, internet people be nasty, and trust me when I say you can live without it. You'll actually have a much better life. Let me tell you though a little bit about one of the original Photoshop troll trends. Blue Waffle became a thing in the early 2000s. It is allegedly a sexually transmitted disease that leaves both male and female nether regions looking pretty messed up. Messed up with a bluish tinge. Great. So anyway, a lot of photoshopping of body parts went on, leading people to believe that it was legit. Many people, especially kids, were actually worried about the disease, so many that a doctor felt compelled to make a video about it.
Blue waffle disease is not a thing.
Okay, what else we got? A giant spider and pals are coming into number 5. I don't like spiders, but I am gonna call BS on this straight away. This is scary to look at, but honestly I take comfort in the fact that there is no way that this is real. The image was clearly taken in a house of some kind. A spider is on the ceiling. The thing is though, the biggest spider in the world is the giant bird-eating spider, and 1, it isn't even that big, and 2, it lives in the rainforest of northern South America, so you're very unlikely to see one ever. I would say sleep easy, but I think that the small spiders are real, and that's also gross. Coming into number 4, we have this old ghost. It's an old chestnut, it's an old ghost, I've seen it a lot of times. Have a look at this picture. It's usually accompanied by short stories like this. Back in the 1950s, the Cooper family from Texas moved into their new home, but something was amiss. Once there, they took a family photo, but when they got the picture developed, there was an image of a body falling from the ceiling. On further investigation, the story has brought no plausible explanation. There have been many speculations, including one that argues that the shadow is the ghost of the previous owner of the house. The film was proved as authentic, so what's going on? For me, it's all very Amityville horror, right? No prizes for guessing that of course this image turned out to be photoshopped. The real image is just of a nice family, sitting down, sans ghost. Oh, hey there Slender Man. How are you doing at number 3? I feel like you can't get through a scary top 10 list without reference to Slender Man, so here he is. Slender Man is an internet urban legend that crawled forth from a creepypasta posted on a forum by Eric Knudsen in 2009. The tall, thin humanoid with no facial features piqued the interest of many internet users, so it was only a matter of time before they started photoshopping him into pre-existing images and spreading scary news stories. For example, here is Slender Man seen lurking in the shadows at the back of a group of kids. Here he is responsible for a child's abduction. Here he is having started a school fire. Slender Man, he gets everywhere. Okay, we are heavily on the internet creepypasta wagon here. Coming in at number 2, we have Jeff the Killer. I feel like most of you will recognize this image. Jeff. Jeff the Killer emerged from the internet in 2008, and the story usually goes a little something like this. There was a boy at school, he was terribly bullied, he mutilated his own face and went on a killing spree. Things escalated kinda quickly. He even murdered his own brother, to whom he whispered the words, "Just go to sleep." Horrifying stuff, right? Sure, creepypasta. It was all over the internet. This is the image used to depict Jeff the Killer, but actually the image is photoshopped from a picture of an innocent young girl. Here is the original. It turns out that the reveal of the real image actually even sparked a new urban legend of its very own. The story then went that the exaggerated and photoshopped image of the teenage girl upset her so much, and she was bullied so hard for being the face behind Jeff the Killer that she herself actually took her own life. Now, I'm actually pretty sure that that part of the story isn't true. But either way, turning a girl into a grotesque caricature just like that isn't okay. I honestly think that Photoshop is scariest when the image is given context, given a story. This Photoshop image at number 1 was so compelling that it made the story seem very believable, and well, I think it's fake. I certainly hope so. Coming into number 1, we have the Russian sleep experiment. The Russian sleep experiment was, according to internet lore, a hospital experiment that was said to have taken place in Soviet Russia. The Soviets were experimenting on political prisoners during World War II. Now, we know that they did do this in some form in real life. Russian doctors allegedly used sleep deprivation as torture and studied its effects. Now, prisoners were told that they would be freed if they took place in a 30-day experiment. To cut a long story short, at the end of the experiment, those still alive could no longer be described as human or even human looking. When asked what they were, one of the subjects reportedly smiled and said, "We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." I don't know. Cool. So what does the madness inside of your head look like? Good question. Something like this, apparently. Horrifying, right? I almost believed this story when I saw this picture. That was until I saw the original image. It turns out that the famous Russian sleep experiment image actually comes from a real horrifying movie prop called Spasm that was photoshopped to look like it was a prisoner. Lovely. Great. Horrifying. Ugh. Well guys, I think we've all learned a lesson today involving believing what we see on the internet. Not all scary images are fake, but it does serve us to pay better attention to what might be, especially when we're living in a world of deep fakes. So guys, which image do you think was the scariest? Let me know in the comment section down below.
At number 10 we have Look Out Below! The kid in this next photo is about to get a shower he never asked for. If there's anything that this picture has taught me, it is that I am right in my quest to never have kids. Look at how gross this is. Oh, it looks thick too, like the stream of puke flowing out of that kid's mouth is a fresh brew of whatever he ate for breakfast and all of the midnight snacks he had. That kid is getting puke all over his head and he's gonna be picking chunks out of his hair. But this is why kids can be so gross. For the most part, they're pretty fun to hang around. They have so much energy and they keep you updated about what's going on in Fortnite and all those other things. But every now and again you will get one that will puke on your head without remorse. If you feel like you're going to puke, you should probably leave and go to the bathroom. This picture can wait, but at the same time, I am so grateful that this kid has such poor puking etiquette because now we have this amazing photo on this list. I just feel bad for that kid who had to get puked on. This looks like this picture was taken at the start of the season and his jersey is already ruined. At number 9, we have Be Aware of Your Surroundings. If there's anything that football has taught me, it's that you always need to have your head on a swivel. If you let your guard down for even a moment, you might have the world come crashing down on top of you, or you might end up doing an unexpected backsplash. Oh Lord, she a comin'. This picture is so perfect. Let's ignore the dude's tan nipples for a moment and look at that lady who's about to ruin her phone and everything on her person. If you look closely, you can see these small ripples that are coming off of her feet because they're just touching the water. That's how you know she has reached the point of no return. Or who knows, maybe this lady is the reincarnation of Jesus Christ and she's about to walk on water and everything will be fine. Probably not though. I love how this is the exact moment before anyone has noticed and she is too far gone for anyone to save her. The only thing that would make this picture better was if it was a video. I need to know how this plays out. At number 8 we have Wear a Helmet. We all want to look cool. There's something deep in our souls that make us urge for human approval and that sometimes will cause us to make decisions that are perhaps fashion forward but put your body at risk, like what's going on in this picture right here. This guy is about to meet a world of hurt that he never knew was possible, and to be fair, it's not really his fault. I can't knock him for his ability to ride the bike. It looks more like it was shoddy craftsmanship rather than poor driving skills that led to this disaster. But this dude is about to get some road rash on his face and maybe lose a few of his teeth. The crazy thing is that all the dudes in the background have helmets helmets on? Why didn't you join them in their quest for cranial safety? At number 7 we have you're not licensed. Usually if you do a photo shoot on a heavy piece of machinery, you make sure that said piece of machinery is turned off, but I guess this time they didn't really care and they underestimated the power of an ATV. I love how every face in this picture has a different expression of terror. First you have the grandma, who has her maternal instinct kick in and feels the call to save that young boy. Then you have the kid following, uncontrolled fear, a quick realization that he has no control over the situation and his fate is no longer decided by himself. Then you have the kid driving, his brain is trying to understand the power that he now possesses and his heart knows that he will never tame it. Also, driving kid's face is so red it looks like it's gonna pop like a cherry tomato. At number 6 we have hot rain. What does someone have to do to try and get a little sun without being disturbed? If you live in the northern parts of North America, then sunshine only comes around a few months a year, so you want to try and enjoy every last second that you can get of it. And then something like this happens. Oof, that girl is in for a rude awakening. The worst part is she doesn't see it coming at all. She's gonna have hot dog pee showered on her like she's in a super soaker fight. Even worse than that, it looks like she's sunbathing in a park. If she was on a beach and this happened, at least she could get up, run to the water, rinse herself off, and all the pee would be gone, and she would only be left with the emotional scarring that comes with the social embarrassment that will never leave her. But she doesn't even have a towel there. She's gonna have to get dressed, walk home in the sun, and have a bunch of people give her weird looks because she smells very strange. At number 5 we have Batter Up. I've never been to an MLB game, but I thought they had nets to prevent this kind of thing from happening, but I guess not, and these ladies should not have been sitting in these seats because none of them are ready for what is about to happen. If you're going to sit in the hot seat, then you better be ready to catch those rogue balls, because shutting your eyes is not gonna help the situation. All 4 of them have their eyes closed. They're like, ah no, please don't kill us. It's gonna kill you, it doesn't care, it's a ball. Mind you, I have to say, if I was in that position, I would be doing the exact same thing. I'm not a ninja. I'd be sitting there with a black eye and a cold beer pressed against my eye socket. At number 4 we have you didn't even make it to the wedding. You hope your wedding dress is going to look great on the day of your wedding, but then this happens and you better hope that it is machine washable. Oh no, that is not gonna go away anytime soon. It's done. It's the biggest day of her life and it's over just like that. Might as well tell everyone that the wedding is cancelled. I bet the cameraman got fired after that. Why didn't he warn them about the impending doom? The real disaster is gonna be the bride who has the unstoppable rage coursing through her veins. At number 3 we have, well, that's all this picture says. Just, well, I've never seen someone accept their fate better than this lady. Maybe the picture is photoshopped and that's why she seems so accepting of the situation. Maybe this is a camera trick to make the waves seem way closer than they actually are. But I like to believe that this is actually a massive wave about to crash down on this lady. I don't want her to get hurt, but I want her to lose her hat and her flip-flops, and have a family member bring up the story about how Sherry got tossed in a wave in the Bahamas at every family get-together. Maybe just a little water up the nose too. At number 2 we have bad friends. This is what happens when you hang out with bad people. They will do stuff like this at any chance they get, and I have to say, I am one of these bad people. I would have totally done the same thing in this situation. This poor guy's little Johnson is about to meet its end in the worst way possible, and he doesn't even see it coming at all. Worst of all, the dog doesn't know that he's doing anything wrong. He's just trying to solve the mystery of the red dot. And for our number 1 spot, we have It Sucks to Be a Duck. As humans, we have a pretty sweet spot on the food chain. We don't have to worry about creatures jumping out and trying to eat us at any moment. We've managed to cage ourselves in some pretty nice cities that protect us from all the horrors of the world. And I cannot say the same for this duck. Holy moly, this guy is about to get chomped on by 300 teeth. That is the last thing this feathered friend is ever gonna see. A cage of dentistry tearing him apart. At least it will be a quick death. That bird is gonna be ripped in half before he's able to process what is happening. Not the preferred way to die, but at least a decent one. I think that's a warrior's death or something. It's at least a bird's death. Alright everyone, that is our list, and as promised I'm going to be doing some more pet shoutouts. Remember, if you want me to shout out your pet, you can hit me up on Instagram. I pick new pets every day, so if you don't get picked one day, you can message back another day. And if it takes me a little while to get back to you, I am very sorry. I have a lot of these to do, and without taking any longer, let's shout out some pets. First off, we have Keese, who is the cutest little dude I have ever seen in my life. I love him so much. Look at those big blue eyes. Oh my god. Then we got Snowy, who is living up to his name with that cute mane of white fur. After that we have Bianca, who's a little doggo with a big toy. Next we got not one, not two, but 3 wiener dogs hanging out on the top of stairs trying to figure out how to get down them. That is the dramatic movie that I always wanted. Then there's a big old orange snoozer, Loki. What a nice cat, looks so cute. And to top it off we have Misty with her big, green, beautiful eyes. Love this cat. Alright everyone, that has been our list.
Starting off this countdown, we have experimental electrical stimulation. Taken in 1856, this photo shows a man undergoing an experiment with electrical stimulation. And by the looks of it, it was quite painful. So back then, they would use the stimulation for a number of reasons. 1, to manipulate and experiment on one's nervous system, and 2, to treat certain diseases and disorders. Nowadays, this treatment is much safer. They use it to help with injured muscles or manipulate nerves to reduce pain. But back then, they were still trying to get it right. So it makes you wonder how many people underwent these painful experiments, and how many people were accidentally killed before they found the correct voltage to use. In our 9th spot today, we have the lipstick killer. And if you're liking this video so far, then smash that like button because it really helps us out. William George Herons was an American criminal and potential serial killer that confessed to be the lipstick killer. The lipstick killer was someone who took the lives of a number of women and would often leave a creepy message at the scene of the crime in lipstick. That's how he got the name, Lipstick Killer. The photo I'm about to share with you was a creepy message that he left at the scene of one of his crimes in 1945. He wrote, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." Now this message is creepy for a number of reasons. First, you got a man on the loose who can't control his impulses and he just admitted it. And second, look how creepy it just looks with the lipstick smeared everywhere and such. It took the police 6 more months from the time this message was written to finally catch William. This photo is just a scary and dark reminder of the horrors this man committed. Moving on to number 8, we have the poverty. This photo from 1948 shows just how bad poverty was in the 1940s to 50s in America. This is when the poverty rate was at its highest. In this photo, Mr. and Miss Ray Chalifo were facing eviction from their Chicago apartment. They were so desperate for money that they had to sell their kids. Now this photo was a staged photo, but it still shows a heartbroken mother not knowing what else to do. Within 2 years, all 4 kids were sold into different homes. It also sheds the light on how different laws were back then. Nowadays, that is very much illegal to do. Anyways, this is a very heartbreaking photo. Like, I can't imagine what that family went through. Moving on to number 7, we have the nuclear shadow. On August 6, 1945, the United States dropped an atomic bomb on Hiroshima. The bomb was so powerful that people up to a mile of it were vaporized. All that was left of them was their shadows burnt into stone. This is a creepy image that shows one of the bomb's victims. It's a silhouette of an elderly man or woman with a cane. So the bomb's light and heat were so powerful that it bleached any exposed surfaces. In this case, the person's body shielded that part on the sidewalk, and that's why an imprint was left there. All around Hiroshima, there were multiple of these body outlines. It's very disturbing and sad. It just shows their final moments alive. In our 6th spot today, we have the Stanford Prison Experiment. The Stanford Prison Experiment set out to explore the psychological effects of imprisonment. It started on August 14th, 1971. A university psychology professor gathered a bunch of student volunteers and divided them into groups. 11 were assigned the role of guards and 10 were assigned the role of prisoners. It's going to be a 2-week experiment where the volunteers would play their part in a make-believe prison. But the experiment had to be ended after only 6 days. The volunteers got way into character. Some guards turned sadistic. They really exercised their power over the prisoners, whereas many prisoners became depressed and showed signs of extreme stress. The study and this creepy photo provide a chilling look at what humans are capable of. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Wild Man suit. Not only is this a dark photo from history, but it's also a very mysterious one. This suit that you're seeing is what historians named the Wild Man suit. It consists of a double-layered set of armor covered in 1-inch long iron nails. What was it used for, you may ask? Well, no one knows for sure. One popular theory is that it was used during bear hunting in the 1800s, or it was used in bear baiting. Don't know if that's true, but it looks very uncomfortable to wear. Maybe it was a twisted torture device. The executioner would wear it and then give the prisoner a nice big and tight hug. I don't know, I'm just guessing, but either way it's messed up. In our 4th spot today, we have the ruins of Hiroshima. Here is another very scary and sad photo taken after America dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. The bomb had an explosive yield equal to 15,000 tons of TNT. In fact, it destroyed 5 square miles of the city. This photo shows the ruins of the once beautiful city. Buildings and wildlife were completely destroyed by this bomb. In fact, the US remains to be the only country to ever use an atomic bomb in war. It had a huge lasting impact on the city that we should never forget about. In our third spot today, we have the Titanic. On April 15th, 1912, the infamous ship the Titanic began to sink. 1,500 passengers sank with the ship after it hit an iceberg during its maiden voyage. The few that did manage to survive fled on lifeboats. This is a picture of the last lifeboat approaching the rescue ship. You can see it was crammed with passengers as all the lifeboats were. This photo serves as a reminder of this great tragedy in history and all the innocent individuals that were impacted by this disaster. In our second spot today, we have the San Francisco earthquake of 1906. In 1906, San Francisco was hit with a massive 7.9 magnitude earthquake. It has since garnered the title of the most powerful earthquake in Northern Californian history. This earthquake not only caused homes to come crumbling down, but it also started a number of fires throughout the city. Hundreds of fires started as a result of the broken gas lines. These fires went on for 3 days, engulfing 500 city blocks. More than 3,000 people passed away from the earthquake and fires. 20,000 buildings were destroyed and 200,000 citizens were left homeless. It was very sad and tragic. This is a photo from this devastating time. This was after all the damage was done. People lined the streets and just stared at the destruction that the earthquake caused. And in our number one spot today, we have the American buffalo. Now this photo is absolutely heartbreaking. This was taken in 1892 Michigan, and that is an actual mountain made up of buffalo skulls. That means thousands of buffaloes were slaughtered. No wonder why the buffalo population is considered near threatened and are at risk for extinction. So these skulls were then ground down to be used in making bone china or refining sugar and producing fertilizer. It's said that around the end of the 18th century, there were between 30 to 60 million buffaloes on the continent. When this photo was taken, the population was at only 456. They literally slaughtered millions of buffalo. What makes it worse is that some of the buffalo were killed purposely just so that the indigenous individuals were deprived of them. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below which one of these pictures gave you the heebie-jeebies. And now, starting off this countdown, we have the secret entrances. Just last year, a man claimed to have found 3 hidden entrances that lead to Area 51. He discovered this after using Google Earth. He compared images of the base from different time periods. In one particular area in 1998, there seems to be no roads or entrance. Satellite pictures of that same location in 2005, 2010, and 2013 show a road and a dead end with what looks like an entrance and tunnel carved into a mountain. In fact, at the dead end, there appears to be cars parked there. Seems unusual for people to just park there, because what is around for them to do? Wander the barren plain alone? No, they're parking their cars there and then entering Area 51 through this secret entrance. In our 9th spot, we have the alien craft. What I'm about to show you is a leaked video and some photos from Area 51 of an alien spacecraft test. The video features a flying object hovering in the sky and moving in ways that other crafts definitely don't do. This was recorded on May 15, 2017, and then was leaked years later. If this isn't actually a UFO, then what could it be? That's what's baffling people. The way it just moves up and down and side to side that quickly is very strange, especially because of its size. What do you think though? Is this proof that Area 51 has gotten their hands on an alien spacecraft? Moving on to number 8, we have the transportation of a UFO. When this next photo was leaked online, it was met with a number of conspiracy theories. So this is the image of the CIA transporting a large part for one of their top secret projects. In fact, when this was getting transported, the CIA sealed off the entire highway. And I'm sure you can see why this was met with a number of conspiracy theories. Like, look at the shape of the thing that they're transporting. That is definitely a UFO or part of a UFO spaceship. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. Somehow, a group of bikers made it onto the road. When they were stopped by some soldiers, they asked what they were transporting, and the soldier said they found a UFO up in the mountains. Now apparently he said this jokingly, but who knows? In our 7th spot, we have the Tic Tac UFO. Last year, another UFO was spotted near Area 51. This one was given the name the Tic Tac UFO because of its tic tac shape and white or bright appearance. So this spacecraft was caught on footage by a person driving along near Area 51. He was driving along the extraterrestrial highway. That's the name given to the highway in Nevada, as a number of UFOs have been seen by drivers while on this route. At first, the driver thought that what he was seeing was just a cloud. When he got closer to it, he realized that it was definitely a craft of some kind. Later on, alien hunter Scott Waring confirmed that the UFO was in fact alien in origin. Also, the area in which he was driving through had a number of wind farms in the area. Turns out that in the past a lot of UFOs have been spotted around wind farms, and one UFO even crashed into a windmill many years back. Some say this is because aliens are fascinated with human technology. In our 6th spot we have Stephen Barron. In 2016, UFO hunter Steve Barron captured video and photographic evidence of another alien spacecraft close to Area 51. These were taken near his home in Las Vegas, Nevada, an hour drive from Area 51. Using a night vision camera, Steve head out to Red Rock Canyon to try and capture a UFO. The first couple of hours, there was nothing. Then he saw mysterious weird flashing lights appear over a mountain. He said this in regards to the UFO and its lights, and I quote, "First one, then two, then more and more. They put on a spectacular show. I am glad I was patient because the show they put on kept getting better and better." We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the CIA spy plane. In 2011, Los Angeles Times journalist Annie Jacobson published a book called Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base. In the book, she included a number of never-before-seen photos of the base. The first one I want to show you is of a CIA spy plane. This photo shows an A-12 ox cart hidden behind a barrier at Area 51. This was a top-secret plane that was created to reach high speeds and altitudes. During the first 3 years of testing this plane, everything was kept top secret. In fact, the pilots weren't even allowed to tell their wives what they were working on. On May 24, 1963, during a test flight, the plane crashed. The pilot, Ken Collins, was fine but had to eject himself out of the plane. But afterwards, the CIA actually injected him with sodium pentothal, aka truth serum, to then interrogate him after the crash. That's crazy. In our 4th spot, we have the rare photo. So this photo was also featured in Annie Jacobson's book Area 51, an uncensored history of America's top secret military base. In fact, this is a very rare photo that has never been published before. It was published for the first time in Annie's book, and that's it. This photo is an aerial view of Area 51 taken in 1964. I don't know why it was kept a secret for so long or how Annie got her hands on it, but she did and decided to share it with the world. Moving on at number 3, we have the early U-2 spy planes. In the early 1950s, at the peak of the Cold War, the CIA began to develop planes that they wanted to reach an altitude of 70,000 feet to avoid detection against Soviet radar. This gave birth to the U-2 spy planes that you see here in this picture. This photo was taken in Area 51 in 1956, and pictures of workers standing on the plane's wing. Sadly, at least 3 pilots lost their lives during test flights, including 2 at Area 51 and 1 at an Air Force base in Germany. Coming in at number 2, we have Boyd Bushman. Shortly before his death, former Area 51 engineer Boyd Bushman revealed that he encountered aliens while working at Area 51. In a video, Bushman shows a number of mysterious photos to the camera, including one of an alien and a number of photos of the alien's appendages.
We have a total of at least 18 that exist and operate with our facility.
Now, many people believe that this man is telling the truth. Why? Because he had nothing to gain or lose by sharing his story. Plus, an interrogator with the police studied Boyd's movements and speech pattern during this interview, and he said that it appears as if he's telling the truth. In the interview, he said that Area 51 has at least 18 of these aliens in their facility. He also claims that there are 2 groups of aliens. One group are called the Wranglers, the others are called the Rustlers. The aliens that are considered Wranglers are friendly and have a better relationship with humans. Rustlers, however, have been known to steal cattle. This is all insane. And in our number 1 spot today, we have Boyd Bushman and the UFO. During his interview, Boyd Bushman also revealed photos of real UFO spacecrafts that he saw while working at Area 51.
Up close and personal, this is a UFO which is ready to take off.
So that's a close-up photo of a UFO spacecraft taking off. Then he also showed a different photo of a UFO spacecraft with its lights turned off. What do you think though? Is Boy telling the truth? Are those real photos of UFOs? Let me know in the comments below. Alright guys, that's all for today's video. I've asked this question before, but let me know in the comments, do you believe in aliens? Have you ever had?
Kicking off the list at number 10, Victorian memorials. I'm a sucker for dark history, and when it comes to the Victorian era, there is nothing more grim, honestly. Deadly dresses, the great stink, rats everywhere. It's a dangerous time. The life expectancy was of course a lot shorter than it is today. So you really had to hold on to those you loved, right? But this is a time where we don't have iPhones, we don't have Facebook just randomly showing you memories. Remember this? Like, no, stop. So how do you remember a loved one after they've passed away? Well, Victorian mourning jewelry, that's how. In the 1750s, it would be normal to carry with you a gold locket with hair from your past lover. It's, yeah, a little locket of hair. How cool is that? Creepy? A little bit creepy. It was often braided or neatly folded. It wasn't just a ball of hair stuffed in a locket. Although it wasn't not that either, right? It was pretty gross. During Queen Victoria's reign, she would often wear mourning jewelry. She made the locket of hair cool, dare I say. She made it popular. After the death of Albert, she went into a horrible depression. She wore mourning clothes for decades and decades afterwards. That's why you see the Victorian era and everyone's wearing black. Everyone looks all grim. It's because they just followed suit. They just wore what the Queen was wearing. Bracelets, necklaces, rings. The enamel of the rings also depends on the type of death that came prior, or the type of mourning that you're doing. White enamel represented death of an unmarried woman. Pearls represented tears. Turquoise meant that you were thinking of them on that day. And eventually pendants with hair became a next step. I'm a fan of mourning jewelry. I like that idea. I wish I knew this sooner. I wish I knew this 10 years ago. I'd be like, oh, my eyebrow piercing? Yeah, it's to mourn my mother. That's why I got it. Sad and rad. Boink. There you go. Number 9, Detroit Ice Fountain. Located on Washington Boulevard, the Detroit Ice Fountain was quite the hazard. A spectacle, but a hazard nonetheless. Back in the early 1900s, a fountain was the talk of the town during colder months. Believe it or not, it's how bored people were, I guess. The water jets would run all year long, so in turn, this fountain would freeze and pile up, and then freeze and pile up again and again. Eventually, this thing reached up to 60 feet tall, made of pure ice, right on Washington Boulevard. This was so dangerous. Yeah, shifting ice, dangling 60 feet above your head on the way to work. Literally tons of ice cracking above your head. The tradition has now moved to Belle Island, thankfully, so now you can safely observe said ice trees. Just, you know, maybe not in the middle of the street anymore. Number 8, adhesive bras. Back in 1949, Life magazine released an article that caught everybody's attention, obviously. May 16th, 1948, the article read, "For 5,000 years, clothes have been draped, tied, buttoned, pinned, and buckled on the human form. This year, for the first time in history, they will be glued on." Bam. How? How did they do it? They changed the game. Could this be? We're gluing on shoes and pants now? Let's do it. Inventor Charles L. Langs changed the game, or so we thought, in 1949. He made bra cups that would stick onto you with adhesive. Just a ring of glue. There you go. This special glue, this adhesive, was promised to leave behind no residue, and it was also supposed to be painless. Yet at the same time, it was supposed to stay glued on, even if you were to jump into a pool from 10 feet high. How? That was the sell. No way. Well, Langs ended up selling the company to Textron because it didn't work. The product ultimately failed because the adhesive needed to be applied every single time you wore said cups. Nobody wants to do that. We're not putting on toothpaste on our bras every morning and sticking them on. And again, they barely even worked, so yeah, none of these, thank you. I'm good. Glue on pants? That'd be sick. Till then, we're not trying that. Number 7, Mount Osor. Mount Osor is not the name of just one singular mountain, but instead it's an entire mountainous range. Translating to Mount Fear, cool. This area is known as the entrance to the afterlife because it features all the geographical elements that are similar to the Japanese Buddhist descriptions of paradise and hell. So not only is this area home to 8 symbolic mountain tops, but also a lake with acidic water that only one species of fish can survive in. We got acid fish, come on in, grab a canoe. There's also nothing but bear pits full of vipers. Not an ideal spot to take your family camping, that's for sure. Beyond this mountain range, there's even a river that's known as the border between earth and hell. This is where each and every soul must cross in order to reach the afterlife. If I'm somehow selling you on this idea and you want to take a trip up to Viper Lane, when you get there you'd find statues and offerings along the banks of this river, which are intended to help the past souls find their way during this journey, because it's definitely not good if the souls get lost, because you don't want to even know where you end up. Getting lost in a journey to the afterlife? No man, keep me on track. Waze. Thank you. Every year from July 22nd to 24th, those wanting to communicate with the dead will head to this temple located here to speak with spiritual mediums known as the Itako. So if you're feeling like spicing up your weekend, go gamble with souls of the dead. Have fun. Text us when you get there. And back. Number 6, Ghost City. Fengdu is located in China and it's often referred to as the City of Ghosts. For a long time it was believed that this is where the dead stop by on their way to the afterlife, and it is here where they must pass 3 tests in order to get there. 3 tests. It's a lot of tests right after you die. The first one is for the newly departed souls who must cross over the Bridge of Helplessness. Sounds like a good bridge, better than the Bridge to Terabithia, which is meant to judge their virtue. Okay, so there's demons here who judge whether the soul is good or bad, and the ones who are good can pass while the bad ones are pushed into the water below. Imagine a demon pushing you into the water. It's worse than getting pushed in at a pool party. The ones who pass that first test go on to the Ghost Torturing Pass, where they stand in front of the ruler of the underworld. If they pass that judgment test, then the third and final trial takes place at the Tianzi Palace, where they will stand on a certain stone for 1 minute, also on one leg. For 3 minutes they have to do this. This is where hot yoga comes in handy. Only a good soul can do this, apparently. If you lose your balance, like I just did back there, maybe you're not wearing your minimal runners and you're wearing Timbs, or maybe you're just condemned to hell. Either one. Fengdu also has many temples and shrines which hold paintings and sculptures that represent people in the underworld. So go take a look at the oldest, awfulest selfie on the planet, that's for sure. Go take a look at some old demon art, have fun. Number 5, Huska Castle. Located north of Prague in the Czech Republic, Huska Castle is supposedly built over a bottomless hole that leads directly to, you guessed it, hell. Legend says the 13th century king Ottokar II offered a pardon to any prisoner who was willing to get lowered into this hole and live to talk about it. What a deal. The first prisoner, when they were lowered into that pit, they only lasted 30 seconds before they started screaming. Legend has it that when he was brought back up, his hair turned white and he'd aged a great amount. That's a lot of stress in 30 seconds. What he saw, however, was also pretty intense, and it kind of explains it. He saw these half-human, half-demon type creatures flying around with scaly wings. Awesome, that's terrifying. The castle was built over the hole without a water source because it wasn't initially meant to be used by humans. Instead, it was only built for demons, should they rise from the mysterious hole. That way they can get out. God love these demons, you know? You don't want them trapped there for too long. It's a lot of noise, a lot of complaints. A lot of pollution. Number 4, Niihau Island. Located in Hawaii, this island has not yet turned into a resort either. What do you know? In fact, the population of this island is a whopping 170, also referred to as the Forbidden Island. It was bought back in 1864 by Elizabeth Sinclair, and it's been privately owned since. Hence the small population. Thing is, in 1952, the polio epidemic hit these islands and a ban was then put in place. So now you couldn't leave nor enter the island. Nobody got sick, which is great, but now if you want to enter this island, you need to gain special access, which is a lot harder than it may seem. Even if you're rich, even if you're loaded, you can't just buy your way onto the island, so for now we'll just zoom in on Google Earth. Bird's eye view for the win. It's a nice island. It's like a moon shape. It's good. Number 3, Island Moor, Scotland. What better island to visit than one with nobody on it? It's gonna be pretty quiet. In the early 1900s, a ship was heading to the Flannan Islands, completely uninhabited, but on the ship we had Captain James Harvey and Joseph Moore. They were heading there to watch the lighthouse, but upon arrival, nobody greeted them. He blew his horn, waited, still nobody. That's when you gotta text them, be like, hey, I'm here, come down the thousands of steps, thanks. The replacement lighthouse keeper rowed to shore and started walking up the steep set of stairs towards the lighthouse, but when he got there, he realized the door was unlocked, and 2 of the 3 coats were missing. Upon further investigation, he saw the half-eaten food, a chair that had been tossed over, and the kitchen clock had stopped. No sign of the keepers. When checking the lighthouse log, the previous days were odd. December 12th, the second assistant Thomas Marshall wrote, severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. James was awfully quiet, and William the third lad was crying the whole time. Sinister vibes for sure. That's like the movie The Lighthouse in real life. That's a hard no for me, never going to this island. Next. Number 2, Poveglia Island, Italy. The small island of Poveglia has taken many, many lives. When the bubonic plague arrived in 1348, the island became a quarantine colony. So if you had symptoms, you were just sent to this island to die. How horrible is that? Then again in 1630, the Black Death crept in, and then once again the center of this island became a mass graveyard. In the 1800s, the mentally ill were sent to this island because an asylum was built. The rumor was that in the 1930s, this doctor tried crazy experiments on these patients, and then he himself went crazy and then jumped from the tall bell tower. Although the tower doesn't stand anymore, his screams apparently are still heard by locals. The soil is 50% human remains as well, so if you're looking to plant some haunted aloe vera, well, there you go. And finally, number 1, Fort Knox. Located in Kentucky, USA, this place really is the jackpot. The most heavily guarded place on the planet, and it's not an Egyptian pyramid. Odd. The amount of gold in here might actually be a lot more than ancient pharaohs, to be fair, so listen up. Fort Knox is home to a large amount of the United States gold reserves. Thing is, even if you work here, you're still not getting into Harry Potter's vault of treasures. Each staff member only knows part of the combination to get in, so you can't just heist your way out of lunch one day. Rumor has it, there's apparently no gold in here, but instead they're studying an extraterrestrial. Another rumor is that the United States actually sold off all the gold ages ago, and they just don't want anybody to know. I weirdly vote the latter. Number 10, Surtsey Island. On part 1 of this list, we mentioned the global seed vaults. Well, for part 2, we need to mention the island where seeds are forbidden. In fact, any human activity is forbidden. This island is also pretty new. It was born from a volcanic eruption back in 1963, and scientists are using the fresh face of land to study what it looks like to, well, not have a Starbucks. They're studying ecosystems without any human interference, which I think is really creepy, but also quite interesting. Scientists studying the land here have to just follow one rule, and that rule is no seeds. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Like, obviously. One time, a scientist had to go number 2, and in turn, he accidentally grew a tomato plant. He pooped a tomato plant out. Not really, there was a seed somewhere in there. That would be painful. They acted fast and got rid of the plant in order to not interfere with their study, but like, what a weird job. Guy can't even take a shit at work. How stressful is that? Number 9, the Forbidden City. Built all the way back in 1420, around the time of the Ming Dynasty, the Forbidden City is said to be extremely haunted, aside from being the largest ancient palatial structure on the planet. Located in Beijing, China, it's one of the 5 most important palaces in the world. It was the Imperial Palace of China from 1420 to 1912. More than 24 emperors lived here in this massive city that took 1 million workers 14 years to build. Inside the city, there's around 980 buildings, and there's roughly 8,000 rooms. It's a lot of rooms to haunt, really, ghost paradise. It was declared a World Heritage Site in 1987, but come 2000, a Starbucks was built on the land. Yeah, the classic, look at how beautiful this landmark is, let's open up a gift shop scenario. By time 2007 came along, there was enough outrage to get officials to close said Starbucks. No more venti lattes for you, Sarah. Sorry. Number 8, the Gates of Guinea. Or He Gates of Guinea, as I wrote. The souls of the dead have to go somewhere, and depending on your beliefs, that somewhere could be either really beautiful and peaceful, or absolutely terrifying. In the world of voodoo, that place is an underworld called the Gates of Guinea. And here's the front door. Come on in. Awesome, take your shoes off. Located in Louisiana, this tomb, that of voodoo priestess Marie Laveau, is apparently the entrance to these deep waters, this twilight realm. And some voodoo followers try and open these gates to access the souls of the deep. Don't play Pokemon Go here. Do not. You don't want to do that. Leave the Poliwag at home, okay? He's a trap. You don't need him. Number 7, German mascots. German history is of course dark. So dark that YouTube won't even allow us to say certain words about certain people from that time. But we do our best. We like to rhyme. That's how we trick them. For today's list, I thought we'd take a look at Germany's fad of taking photos with polar bear mascots. Yeah, apparently that was a thing. Here in Toronto, we like to pose up next to the raptor or Jay, the blue jay. It's always fun. Dap them up, it's always a good time. These photos are part of the teddy bar collection. They span from the First World War to the early 70s. The German bear mascot remained throughout history, but the company surrounding the polar bear mascot, of course, changed drastically throughout the years, and it's really grim to look at. You see photos of a smiling mascot next to Yahtzee soldiers, and then the next page you see the same German mascot, but 40 years ago. You know what I mean? It's odd. You're like, ugh. It's like seeing the Blue Jay guy back in the 1800s. You're like, what were you doing? Many believe this craze began after 2 polar bears arrived at the Berlin Zoo back in the 1920s. That's where it all kicked off. Because of course it was a major tourist attraction. But these suits, we can't forget, were first worn of course by natives for ritual practices, specifically the native people of Pacific Northwest. Romania as well. Dancers would wear real bear skins as part of a pre-Christian tradition. It was meant to drive away the forces of evil. Or just pose up next to Yahtzee soldiers. That's where we're at recently. Number 6, reindeer games. June 1941, the Germans were attacking the Soviet Union, and it was one of the biggest attacks, of course, in history. Britain and US had to send weapons, supplies, anything really just to keep them afloat, just to keep them in the fight. Now they sent these supplies through the Arctic Circle, that was the only route, but of course it was littered with U-boats. Thankfully, the British HMS Trident was there to watch the waters, and in turn the Soviets were able to fight on. So as a gift, as a thank you, the Soviets sent the captain of the Trident, the World War II submarine, a live reindeer. Yep, for the submarine, you know, just a reindeer for the sub. Doesn't make any sense, right? I agree. The British had to accept because it was ill-mannered if they didn't, so they had to keep a 6-foot-tall, real-life reindeer on a sub. Her name was Pollyanna. They brought her on board through a torpedo tube. Imagine being in battle and then having to deal with this after. You're like, guy, we don't need this right now, please. She was a crew member for 6 weeks. 6 weeks, imagine the smell? And she slept better than most. She shared a room in the captain's quarters. Horrible. Finally, the Trident returned home to Britain, and our leading lady was donated immediately to the Regent Park Zoo. Yeah, they didn't keep her on the sub. Weird, right? Number 5, Alfred Hitchcock and the MGM Lion. We're on part 3 now, so things are gonna get a little more bizarre. I'll veer more into the weird, gladly. Like this photo, for example, from 1958, taken by Clarence Sinclair Bull. The photo appears to be, well, it doesn't appear to be, it's Alfred Hitchcock serving tea to Leo the lion. The famous MGM lion, that's him. That's the guy. I want an autograph right now. He loves suspense and tea, who would have thought? North by Northwest was the only film Hitchcock did with MGM, and there's actually a rumor that he directed The Lion's Roar for the MGM intro. But that of course is nonsense, because you can't direct a lion. Yeah, just a little more lion-like. Awesome, thanks Leo. Let's take lunch, we're killing it. No way, that didn't happen. There have been 7 MGM lions in total, but Leo was known to be the most friendly. He's still in the logo today, he's an OG, he's made it. But again, back in the 1950s, it's hard to say what it really was like on set. You know, like it's still a lion, and it's the 50s. I don't think we have a lot of laws and stuff. It was probably a really rough time for Leo. Number 4, the hobble skirt. Just from this 1910 headline alone, I'm glad we don't have hobble skirts anymore. Although maybe they might make a comeback, we'll see. The headline reads, the hobble skirt is the latest freak in women's fashions. Skirts that are so tight around the ankle that locomotion is seriously impeded and speed is impossible. What a pitch. Doesn't that sound like a bad time already? Sounds like you're gonna be late for everything, honestly. French designer Paul Poirier made these to free the bust whilst also shackling the legs. To keep it a little, you know, keep it classy. You know, what's more classy than shuffling around all day long and being late? Nothing. Love the practicality on this one. Thanks, Paul. So despite how ridiculous and unsafe the hobble skirt looks and acts, only the wealthy could afford such a thing. Damn it, we're missing out. We'll get up next time. Guess I'll just stick with my jeans like a fool. Middle and lower class women wore skirts with slits or buttons. They could actually walk around. Imagine that, eh? What a weird concept. Hobble skirts luckily didn't last, but every now and then I sense a comeback, you know? With the Kardashians, I'm like, that's close. That's close to a hobble skirt. Locomotion is seriously impeded. What a sell. Number 3, Gloria Steinem. Back in 1963, the Playboy Club in New York City was one of Hugh Hefner's greatest accomplishments at the time, of course. The club was the talk of the town until Gloria Steinem came along. See, Gloria was a feminist writer. She created Miss Magazine back in 1972, but her career began much earlier, around the 60s. See, she got a job as one of these Playboy bunnies and worked at the club undercover, secretly taking notes on how this key holders only establishment was actually operating, you know, behind the pages. The staff were these young women, the bunnies of course. They had to wear black bodysuits, the puffy white tails, the whole getup, and at age 28, Gloria worked undercover for 3 weeks. The piece she released after, appropriately titled A Bunny's Tale, got so much attention that it kickstarted her freelance career. It made her a feminist icon to this day. This photo of Gloria undercover shows you the comfortable work outfits that she had to endure. That's horrible. It's all dark too. You can't even see what's going on. People are smoking inside. It's like Peaky Blinders. It's horrible. I don't think she had non-slips on. You know what I mean? In a collection of her writings, Gloria reflects on the undercover piece, saying how it has now outlived all the Playboy clubs, both here and abroad. That was before Hefner passed away in 2017. I'm sure she didn't mean outlive literally by this statement. But she also did, you know? Number 2, Stalin Photoshop. Deepfakes are getting out of control. It's insane. Modern technology is really making it hard to tell what's real and what's not. I'm falling for a lot of things online lately. I'm starting to feel like an old man, I'm not gonna lie. Photoshop is also an essential now for any project. That's probably why you clicked this video. You saw the thumb and you're like, what's this? Photoshop. Back in 1939, a photo of Stalin was published and he looks great. Guy looks amazing, some would say too good. He was touching up photos as far back as 1939 to make himself look more powerful, more healthy. But even if you got a photo with him, there's a chance you would be digitally removed later on. Like Nikolai Yevtsov. Yeah, the leader of the NKVD, he was in a photo with Stalin, but around 1937, Nikolai was responsible for orders that had over 1 million people arrested. And to make matters worse, half of them were executed for crimes against the state. So it wasn't ideal, of course, to be in a photo with Nikolai. He was denounced, imprisoned, and died in 1940, so Stalin had him erased and replaced digitally in that photo. This man was ahead of his time. Even today we're replacing actors in movies with different actors, and you wouldn't even know it. And finally, number 1, Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Yes, we all remember hearing about this at one point, even if you wanted to or not. Bill Clinton talking about not having relations with that woman. Yeah, back when we had to download music on LimeWire, this would just pop up out of nowhere and blow your eardrums out. This was a huge scandal. This was that scandal. It was 1998. Clinton White House intern Monica Lewinsky was 22 years old and they had a relation from 1995 to 1997. Lewinsky said she hooked up with Bill 9 different times at the White House. Of course, you have to count. You're at the White House, obviously, you're keeping note. And apparently, according to her schedule, Hillary Clinton was also at the White House for at least 7 of those days. Hey, big yikes. Whenever I see this photo, I wish I was alive to see this unfold in real time. I mean, I was alive, but I was,
Starting up this list in our number 10 spot today, we have the Rothschild Surrealist Ball. The Rothschild family is one of the wealthiest and most powerful families there has ever been, and you know with money comes power, and because of that, there have, for many years, been rumors swirling about just how powerful and influential they really are. That is why in 1972, when they threw what was called a Surrealist Ball, people began to speculate what kind of things may have taken place at this elaborate soiree. These photos could potentially be very innocent, but there's just something about these elaborate masks coupled with the theories about what this family is really up to that just makes it feel very eerie. This party is one of the most legendary there has ever been, and whether or not they really are involved in shady dealings, that is still impressive. It's like the Project X of the rich and fancy. I'll take pools and kegs of beer over this weird mask party any day.
Number 9. Winona Ryder. Back in December 2001, Winona Ryder was doing a little Christmas shopping at a Beverly Hills Saks Fifth Avenue, only she wasn't using her Beetlejuice paycheck at the counter. Instead, she stole thousands of dollars worth of goods. She had accessories, a handbag, clothes. Her arms were literally full of good stuff. She was then sent to the slammer for a whole, 4 hours. Then of course she was released on a $20,000 bail. She was charged with felony grand theft, but she was also charged with possession of pharmaceutical drugs without a prescription. That is a no-no in Beetlejuice land. She had antidepressants on her while she was being arrested. She wasn't intoxicated or anything. She was actually well-mannered. Even Lieutenant Gary Gilman of the Beverly Hills Police Department said she was a, and I quote, true lady. That's a true lady. That's what you gotta do. Just steal a bunch of shit and be in Beetlejuice. Security footage showed the actress cutting tags off in the store, and when she left, she was immediately detained. It's widely known at this point that Winona isn't a horrible person by any means. She was going through stuff at the time, but this photo, no matter the context, it just looks bad. Honestly, I think it's the floppy hat. She just looks like she's doing a diamond heist. I don't know.
In our number 8 spot today, we have John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy is known for a multitude of reasons, but discussions about his health often don't take place. This photo shows just an inch of the struggle Kennedy went through every day, as it is said he suffered from some sort of painful intestinal problems. Apparently things were so bad that for a while it was thought his illness might have been terminal. Aside from the intestinal issues, he also suffered from extreme back pain that stemmed from spinal problems he had as a child. Apparently these back problems were so bad that they almost kept him from service in World War II. After his election, although the world saw him as a young, handsome president, he really was struggling with his health behind the scenes, and it can definitely be seen in this photo. However, it is said that whenever anyone asked him how he was feeling, his only response was that he was in, quote, excellent shape.
Number 7. Stalin Photoshop. Deepfakes are getting out of control. Modern technology is really making it hard to tell what's real and what's not. I thought I knew what was up. Apparently my eyes fool me more often than not. Photoshop is also an essential now for pretty much any project, including your selfie. You gotta touch it up a little bit, get rid of those blemishes. Well, back in 1939, a photo of Stalin was published and he looks great. Some would say too good. Well, he retouched a 1924 photo and then used that as his headshot when he became a leader later on. Even if you get a photo with Stalin, you might not be there in the future. Yeah, there's a chance you would be digitally removed, even back in the day. Like Nikolai Yetov, for example. The leader of the NKVD was in a photo with Stalin, he was, but around 1937, Nikolai was responsible for orders that had over 1 million people arrested. And to make matters worse, half of them were executed for crimes against the state. So it wasn't ideal to be in a photo with Nikolai. He was denounced, imprisoned, and he died later on in 1940, so Stalin had him erased and replaced digitally. Look at that. If you look close, you can actually see Lizard getting punched by an invisible Spider-Man in the background. Yeah, we caught it. The man was ahead of his time. Even today, we're replacing actors in movies with different actors, and you wouldn't even know.
In our number 6 spot today, we have the secret Pacific Ocean Air Base. Also known as the Johnson Atoll, this secret airbase is located right smack dab in the center of the Pacific Ocean. Said to be the location of numerous nuclear tests, the United States government was sure to release little to no details surrounding this location or what exactly goes on there. How comforting. Something about nuclear and secret seems ominous. Aside from being a little secret base, this place is also the home to a thriving community of nesting seabirds, and since it's literally in the middle of the ocean, the marine life surrounding it is significantly diverse. This has all led to there being teams that do environmental monitoring and maintenance to protect the wildlife. Like, how weird is it that this is the place they use to store and dispose of Agent Orange, but they're also like, we gotta protect the birds. I mean, I'm glad they're protecting the birds, I just think it's ironic. To get into this place, you either need to be a part of the United States Air Force or have a special use permit from the US Fish and Wildlife Service. It's so random.
Number 5. A Bunny's Tail. Back in 1963, the Playboy Club in New York was one of Hugh Hefner's greatest accomplishments at the time. The club was, of course, the talk of the town until Gloria Steinem came in. Gloria was a feminist writer. She created Miss Magazine back in 1972. She's a very big lady, I don't know what I was about to say. She's a big deal, but her career began much earlier, around the 60s. See, she got a job as one of these Playboy bunnies and worked at the club undercover. How badass is that? She was secretly taking note of how this key holders only establishment was operating. And it was pretty sketchy. I mean, use your imagination. It was horrible towards women. They're wearing high heels while running drinks. The staff were these young women, the bunnies. They had to wear these black bodysuits, the puffy white tails, the whole getup. And at age 28, Gloria worked undercover there for 3 weeks. The piece she released after, appropriately titled A Bunny's Tale, got so much attention that it kickstarted her freelance career. It made her a feminist icon. This photo of Gloria undercover shows you the comfortable work outfits she had to wear. I sure hope she had her non-slips on. It's a really dark establishment too. Say corner a lot. In a collection of her writings, Gloria reflects on the undercover piece, saying, "My expose of working in a Playboy club has outlived all the Playboy clubs, both here and abroad." That was before Hefner passed away in 2017. She didn't mean to, take a jab at him, but she also did outlive Hugh Hefner. I'll say it. She doesn't have to take the smoke on this, Sal. I connected the dots for you.
In our number 4 spot today, we have Cher. Cher is often referred to as the goddess of pop, and for good reason. She is an absolute legend and an icon. She's never been afraid to push the limits or go outside of the box, so when we came across this photo, we were both surprised and not so surprised at the same time. This little photo comes to us from 1959 when Cher was just 13 years old. As it turns out, Cher was driving when she wasn't supposed to. In a 2013 appearance on The Tonight Show, she explained that a friend of hers had asked her to watch his car while he ran inside to do something. Cher moved the car a couple of times to get out of the way of other people, but then decided that he was simply just taking too long and decided to drive herself over to the drive-in theater. Luckily, everyone was okay, and once the police brought her to the station, they simply just called her mom to come and pick her up. Apparently, she didn't even know she was being arrested at the time, which I totally think you can tell by her expression in the mugshot.
Number 3. Bill Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. Of course, we all remember this one. At one point, we heard about it, be it on LimeWire in the middle of your song, this would randomly play. Bill Clinton talking about not having sexual relations with that woman. Back when we had to download music, that was a classic. So loud, so out of nowhere and so loud. But this was a huge presidential scandal, back when they weren't every other week. It was 1998. Clinton White House intern Monica Lewinsky was 22 years old and they had a sexual relationship from 1995 to 1997. They definitely did. Lewinsky said she hooked up with Bill 9 different times at the White House. Apparently, according to her schedule, Hillary Clinton was at the White House for at least 7 of those visits. minutes. Whenever I see this photo, I wish I was alive to see this unfold in real time. I mean, I was alive, but I was 3. You know what I mean? I wasn't like, damn, that's crazy.
In our number 2 spot today, we have an A-12 spy plane. This photo is one that shows the remnants of a crashed A-12 spy plane from 1963, as well as the subsequent cleanup and rescue mission. This crash happened during a test flight when pilot Ken Collins was testing the plane's subsonic engines at a low altitude. Ken was then flying under his Area 51 code name, which was Ken Colmar, which is just the coolest thing. I really want a secret agent code name. Anyway, at 25,000 feet, the plane basically inverted and somehow landed itself upside down. So now Ken is flying upside down and he knew he wasn't going to be able to recover, so he ejected himself. In the end, Ken was okay, but the same obviously couldn't be said for the plane. To make this cool story even cooler, apparently US officials later made Ken undergo hypnosis and treatments of sodium pentothal, which is thought to be like a truth serum, in order to be sure he relayed the details of the incident as fully and as truthfully as possible. That's serious business. Usually I just ask someone a couple times and then go with whatever they tell me.
And finally, number 1, Charlie Chaplin and Co. I'm wearing a hat now and a sweater. I'll never tell you why. When we think of Chaplin, we often think of the mustache, the physical comedy, the hat, the fact that he lost a Charlie Chaplin look-alike contest, yada yada yada, we know the rest. We remember the performances that he would give us for the most part. It's how you want to be remembered as an artist, ideally. Now when it comes to Chaplin though, those old-timey photos of the comedic genius also include his number of different wives, a lot of them being much younger. The first 2 being 16 years old when they were married, right? His first marriage was with Mildred Harris in 1918. He was 29, she was 15. Odd, that marriage only lasted 2 years, and then he married Lita Gray in 1924. She was also 16. Odd again, that marriage ended with a messy 50-page divorce where it was revealed Chaplin was pretty abusive in all of his manners as a husband. Still the biggest film star, regardless of how he treated co-stars and also ex-wives, he went on to marry Paulette Goddard 9 years later, who was 22. A bit better, but here's the crappy part. She said she was 17 when they met, so a year older than his ex-wives, and he was still pursuing her after she said that, so odd again. He moved into her mansion shortly after they began talking. 7 years later, that relationship ended too, and thus began his new relationship with Una O'Neill. Chaplin in his 50s and Una at age 18. He was the same age as her father. Makes the mustache a little less fun now, doesn't it? They both remained together until Chaplin's passing in 1977. We're talking about Pete Davidson when really we should be talking about Charlie Chaplin still. No.
Starting off this countdown, we have The Price is Right. Earlier this year, several doctors in Michigan were being investigated after doctors were posting photos of their patients' organs on social media. The doctors were then playing a Price is Right game, being like, how much does this organ weigh? Take a guess. Very unprofessional. Plus, one of the posts showed a patient right in the background. Other photos sparked a competition with the caption, "The longest one wins." Apparently, this is what a number of doctors were playing with each other. They were caught, obviously, and the photos were removed. But that still is very unethical. Not only does it make doctors seem unprofessional, but it's also traumatizing for the patients who had their organs photoshopped and manhandled. Moving on to number 9, we have The Victim. Back in 2010, a 60-year-old stabbing victim was rushed into St. Mary Medical Center in LA. Sadly, they passed away after the doctors were too busy taking photos of the man and posting them on Facebook instead of actually treating him. He passed shortly after the photos were taken. Not only is this a breach of patient privacy, but it caused the patient his life. That time spent taking the photo potentially could have saved him. What's worse is that the photos were shared all over Facebook and over texts. So a man lost his life and they didn't think sharing images of him right before his death was wrong? How sick. In our 8th spot, we have the Skull Saw. Take a look at this scary, monstrous device. Aren't you glad it's from the 1800s and not now? This is a picture of the skull saw. It was used from the 1830s to 1860s during brain surgery. The doctors would crank this saw to cut through the skull. Thank gosh, times have changed. But still, I can't help but to cringe at the thought of that. Imagine a doctor pulling out that big device and bringing it close to your face. No thank ya. that's bound to make anyone scared of doctors. Coming in at number 7, we have the corneal transplant. Now, I'm not even sure if I'm allowed to show this photo on YouTube, so I'm just gonna describe it in great detail, just in case. We might have to censor it. Anyways, the photo I'm referring to is one of a corneal transplant. It features the patient's eye stretched wide open after the surgery, so you could see the damn stitches in the person's eye. Now, I don't know about you, but anything to do with eyes gross me out. Like in horror movies like Saw, when people have to do stuff to their eyes, it makes me squirm and cringe. So seeing this and knowing that there's stitches in that sensitive area, gives me the creeps. Now, this photo is obviously meant for medical personnel. Obviously, random people like us seeing it turns us off and might prevent someone from getting this important surgery. Coming in at number 6, we have the smoke enema. Thank gosh doctors don't practice this anymore. So basically, a smoke enema was given to drowning victims because it was thought to help resuscitate them, or warm them up if they were in icy waters. So they'd insert it into their bum and force smoke up there. This was practiced during the mid-1700s until the early 1800s. It took them that long to figure it out that it wasn't really working. Now, what I want to know is who the hell invented this and thought it was actually a good idea. All that would do is damage your colon or make you toot. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the dancing surgeon. Back in 2018, Dr. Wendell Davis Boutte in Atlanta was facing several malpractice lawsuits as she was exposed for posting videos and photos of her dancing while performing surgery. One of the patients was Latoya Archine. She was horrified after seeing herself unconscious while her doctor danced around her. In another clip, her doctor is dancing while swinging her skin around. After the surgery, she realized that her flesh wasn't even cut in a straight line. She blames this on the dancing. Not only that, but her whole procedure was botched. Another patient of Boutte was left with brain damage after a tummy tuck gone wrong. In the end, more than 20 videos were found on YouTube. Boutte had to pay $190,000 in malpractice fees, and 38 patients are entitled to refunds from their botched surgeries, and she got a 2.5-year suspension. Moving on to number 4, we have the disturbing photos of patients. So it seems as if doctors love taking and sharing photos of their patients. It happened to a 23-year-old model who was taken to a hospital in Chicago after binging on alcohol. While in the ER, a doctor took photos of her looking very anxious and disheveled, and then posted them on Facebook and Instagram. Another example would be a doctor who took a picture of an attractive patient in the ER and posted her image on Facebook. He captioned the photo, "I like what I like. That's disgusting." In another case, 2 nurses shared an x-ray of a patient that got a sexual toy stuck up his bum. A total violation of patient privacy. In our 3rd spot, we have the storage of bodies. This is a very depressing photo taken at a Detroit hospital earlier this year. This hospital was so overwhelmed and overcome by death that they were running out of room to store the deceased's bodies. This photo shows the bodies in body bags piled up in random rooms at the hospital. It's very sad how many millions of lives were lost because of this pandemic. This photo serves as a scary reminder. My heart goes out to any families who lost anyone. Moving on to number 2, we have the big leak. Back in February of this year, hundreds of thousands of personal patient records were leaked online and were accessible for anyone to view. This included videos of patients, photos, body scans, x-rays, and pages of personal information. This happened due to the fact that the information was being stored on an unprotected server. 900,000 patient records were accessible online. Obviously, the hospital was in a panic trying to correct their mistake. That information should have not been out there for just anyone to see. In fact, it could have allowed hackers to create a comprehensive profile of their victims. These patients could have become victims of identity theft or fraud, you name it. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the unconscious patient. In 2013, a doctor from BC was suspended and fined after taking pictures of an unconscious and nude patient. He then sent this photo to another staff member. The photo was of the patient's catheter site. And not only that, they were making fun of the patient and sent the photo alongside a joke. In the end, the doctor was fined $20,000, but that was to the College of Physicians and Surgeons. I don't don't even know if the patient was compensated. I hope they were though, that is absolutely traumatizing.